Yo, welcome Flyffers. So I've made a poll yesterday to figure out if you guys would be interested in patch rundown videos. And based on the result right here, more than 700 people voted with yes, they want to have patch rundowns. So well, here we are. And we're going to take a look at the patch 106 that was just released on the 5th of July. I will read what was basically happening, and then I will explain if there's anything to add or if it's good or not. So Tiger Swordboard speed now matches the other flying items. I don't know, that's probably nothing to mention. It should be that all the parts have the same value, so they should have the same speed, which makes sense. Now we're already at a really interesting part, because the Decane Mine quest took forever to complete due to bad spawns and bad quest item drop rates. And right here, they increased the drop chance of the quest items and increased the spawn in the final two rooms. That means the green and the blood trilobies will have a higher spawn, and this is noticeably. It's really, really good. And also, we will come to this later, you are now able to finish the full Decane Mine quest chain due to a bug that was occurring prior that has been fixed. Now the cheer description has been updated, so it's obvious for everyone that cheer is giving 5% additional EXP, and no one is thinking like back in the old days when there were rumors cheer is giving you upgrade luck or whatever. Cheer is only giving you 5% EXP. Now, there's one thing that's really good for the late game right here. We are talking about this change right there, because in Darkroom 3, the desert monsters had multiple elements across their area. This would mean like that Chimerodon, for example, would have 4 different elements, which made it really hard to choose the correct element or having constant benefit from the element you are using. And if you're a 1v1 player, for example, like a huge amount of damage comes from having your weapon to like between 8 to 10 element and using one of the element stones on top of the weapon. And now basically every spawn has the same element, which means all Chimerodons are now wind, all Burnikies are earth, all Mufrins are water. So this is a pretty decent change, even though I would have liked that Mufrins maybe be all fire, so you can keep water on there and have the water ready for Meteor and do not have to switch, because in the late game when you're farming Meteor regularly, you will spend a long time at Mufrin before you're switching over to Pop Ranks, because you want to utilize the element damage bonus of Mufrins as long as you can, at least if you're a 1v1 player. Then we have one right here. This is good for the hit and run players. They made speed of lower rank desert runs the same as higher rank as they were faster, which will allow you to group your monsters on the same spot way more easily. And this is always good. This change I also really like. They increased the Glaven spawn count overall. There were always people fighting, even though with 5 channels there was not enough spawn for all the players, and now that there's more players coming up in this area and at that level, it will be getting even harder. This right here, the spacing out of Popgring on Mufrins, is for 1v1 players. That felt really good, at least when I was leveling there. For AoE players, this means you have to have a wider range and more walking time, so it's a really slight nerf here. I cannot say too much about the increase of the Mars Dungeon quest items, as I've not been there or did any quests over there. This right here was also, I didn't even notice that this dude was big or whatever, but yeah. I think Jack the Hammer, if he would be having like a really huge hammer, it would be funny, so I don't know. And it's just a vendor, so it doesn't really matter too much about the game. Right here, fixed and modified some giant attack AI issues with the following monsters. Some of them were heavily needed, where I can say that what I personally really disliked was the carrier bomb, casting the big range killing spell at random and sometimes not even on the range players. That was really annoying. I hope this is fixed now. And same goes to Watanga, that is basically using the Ringmaster AoE spell as an AoE option. And it's not shown correctly on the ground, and I hope this is also fixed now, but I did not check it yet. So right here, this change is a pretty decent one, because all this means is every class that is using FP refreshers now gets more value for their buck as they increase more FP, and there's nothing to complain about here. This change, okay, scroll of holy from 10 seconds to 4 seconds. This will allow in PvP aspects, I think it's actually only PvP relatable. Like the cooldown is reduced overall, but since the scrolls of holy are so expensive, I think people are currently only using them in PvP. And this will make it harder for people to CC chain, but 4 seconds are still plenty of time if you communicate well to CC chain. And I really like this change, because I think a 10-second holy cooldown is just like some random person can CC you, and then a whole bunch of other players can just follow up, and you have no chance, no counterplay. And with a 4-second cooldown, you are actually able to position yourself. You have the time to call your guild for help. So this change should make PvP a lot more dynamic. Monsters that are no longer in attack mode can now be attacked by other players. This is really good, because what was happening, especially when like there were elementers with Windfield and whatsoever, they ran out of range, the monsters resetted, or you casted Dark Illusion, whatever. Basically the monsters were locked and you could not kill them. As this was not as bad for white monsters. If there were red monsters with this bug, the red monsters would be attacking you and you were not able to defend yourself, which means you would have to run away and board. And this problem is solved now, so really good. Now we are probably at the most controversial part of this patch right here. Based on some of the polls I've made, all the 1v1 players love it and all the AoE players hate it. But overall, my personal opinion is that this change is actually not a nerf. It's just a balance adjustment to fulfill the gap between AoE and 1v1. And if I would be an AoE player, I would be happy that I would had that advantage for such a long time without the devs reacting, and that they could do it for 3 weeks almost with no punishment and could get their advantage, and they should be happy with their advantage, and now it's fairly balanced. So let's explain exactly what is happening here. Monster focus timer, the time they chase you without landing a hit, is now based on the number of monsters focusing the same players. So 3 minutes for 4 monsters, 30 seconds for 4 to 7, 50 seconds for 8 to 13, and 28 seconds for 14 monsters. So many players were just raging over you cannot hit and run AoE anymore and such. But overall, if you're tanking a decent amount, so if you're leveling at monsters where you're actually supposed to level and not monsters like insane over your level, so you're actually in a decent damage break and you're hitting them well, means if you're in this range right here, the 50-second range with 8 to 13 monsters, if you can get that to 13 monsters, you do need to count now a bit. That's making it a bit more stressful, I guess. But if you are leveling at a decent rate of monsters, let's say 3 levels ahead, you can do this really easy. Your pulse will be really short, your kill time will increase, and your downside of the AoE nerf will almost be not noticeable. Even though it will overall be a lot less monsters occupied and more players will be allowed to level on the same spawn without having to constantly change channels and such. So this balance patch, in my opinion, was well needed and is really good executed so far. Even though there are still a bit of workarounds, but I hope they will tackle those in the next patches. This is also really good. Loot ownership timer increased from 15 seconds to 1 minute. The reason why that is good is if you're having a slow CS pad and not a 200% speed one after a standing AoE, it sometimes happens that players were stealing your drops because 15 seconds is not enough after a big AoE to collect all the loot. So this is really good. I also like the change of the healing percentages right there, because I do not think that star candy should have been so good compared to all the other fruits that you're dropping. Star candy should only be like a mid-tier food, so maybe like up to carrier bomb, and then at one point actually the food that you're dropping should become value, so it could also be like some kind of market source that people are trading or selling if they didn't pick up enough. Okay, this is just a text change, not even worth mentioning. Damage absorbed to lifestyle, just a wording thing, nothing really changed there. Then some of the translations were fixed. This is pretty important because some of the translation errors were actually in cash shop items, and I think cash shop's items should be double checked before released, so players do not waste their real money on items that may not be what they were thinking. This change right here was really good, is also good, because there was a workaround. So if someone was killing you on a PK channel, then you could just with H change the channel and then get rest on a different channel, and this would result in you being to abuse the system without going to Kiberas, and that was pretty bad, and I really like this one. Now let's guild siege. Maximum guilds increased from 8 to 10. This depends how many guilds are actually able to play or like want to play PvP. Last siege it was only 6 guilds. I hope this number is increasing, because at the moment if it's only few players sieging and few guilds, then there's no benefit for winning, since they removed the red chips and the benefit is supposed to be coming from the bid war. And if they increase the number of guilds that are able to apply, this means the pool of Penya that you can win will always stay lower, and this is a downside for the winning guild, but probably an upside for every other guild. Now, they also increased the guild siege combat from 30 to 40 minutes. I do like to have more PvP playtime. I think this change is still bad, because resurrection points are a strategic factor in the game, and by this change they are making resurrection points less valuable and a lot more unlikely to happen. Also, there's power-ups that only last 30 minutes, and now Gala is basically cashing out double on those power-ups, because if you survive long enough, you will need to reactivate them for the last 10 minutes. So I do not like the change, and if you change this, you should at least change the PvP power-ups to 1 hour as all the other power-ups, so there's no difference right there. Then some of the guild siege times got changed or kept. I will just read them out. Mashpai is at 6 PM now, Burudeng also at 6 PM, Areas is at 1 PM, and all the other servers are at 9 PM. There was a vote regarding Wednesday sieges to add. In my opinion, it's too early in the server in the server lifetime that Wednesday sieges should be added. They should probably wait another 2 to 3 weeks before they're adding Wednesday sieges, and then in the vote it was basically 9 PM Wednesday siege and 9 PM Saturday siege, and I think the Wednesday siege at 9 PM is fine, since this will allow a lot of players after work to join. But Saturday should either be more during noon, so people can go out partying or whatever on Saturday evening and they're not forced to like play a video game, or just move it to Sunday and you have the partying factor nullified as well. Now they also changed the icon of Protect Low. This was well needed, because there were a lot of scumbags that tried to scam people by selling Protects low for the same price as pros. So yeah, I hope this will cut down on the scams right here. And then also 2 new cloaks got added, because as we already know, there's the Cloak of Strong with 8 strength and the Cloak of Wisdom with 8 int. And now the other classes have the same advantage as well, with the Dex and the Stamina Cloak right there. Now let's finish it up with the class balances. The Siram and Talon set received a slight nerf, with the attack speed going down by 5%. The Extra received a slight buff going up to 20%. This will result in you having to stat less dexterity. And the Alex set is having a really strong buff, because build posters were struggling to get 100 attack speed at level 75 when they got rid of the G-Knuckle. And now with the reduced hit rate, that's almost not noticeable, the 5%, but the 15% attack speed is a really good buff right there. And as well with the Roddy set right here, getting 10% additional attack speed like other sets have, like the Nadion set for example. This is giving a good boost and will allow you to cut down on dex instead more strength right there. Now, I do not like the Mystical Silver Axe exchange right there, because this will cut down on the ability to play a one-handed shield tank knight, because those effects would be good for a tank knight, but dex and reflect is not good for a tank knight. It's only good for a AoE plate. As well as the Mystical Silver Sword, now with like additional block and dex, is good for an AoE plate, and there's probably no reason for an AoE plate to ever choose the Mystical Silver Axe over the sword, since the sword is giving block rate compared to reflect. When you're a block class, you do not reflect a lot because you're blocking a lot. So this change makes no sense to me, because this just cut it down an option to an option play build that people could get a unique playstyle from. Heart of Fury was reduced from 5% to 2% per hit. This is all good. This change is pretty decent. Increased range of Holy Guard to the same target as other Ringmaster buffs. It's a bit annoying if you're doing all this kind of stuff and you have to walk really close. And this change right here is also important for PvP, as this will now allow you to cast Holy Guard at a higher range if you see one of your mates is getting attacked by on-hit classes, and you can protect him by casting the crit rate reduction right here. Rangers and Blades had the best block rate in the game. And with this slight reduce, it's just a balance factor. It's not like the class was nerfed in the ground. It's all good. They always had the best, so they're just making it a bit more relating to the other block modifiers, so this is perfectly fine. That the Dark Illusion cooldown got increased from 20 to 24 seconds is also pretty decent, because if you were playing correctly in PvP, you were able to stay in a safe zone with Dark Illusion for a really long time. And you should be, if you're playing an assassin class, you should have some kind of vulnerability. It's arguably a 4 seconds increase is the right way to go, but it's definitely important that Dark Illusion has a, what's it called? A longer period of time which makes you vulnerable. And I personally would prefer it to be at 20 seconds, but reducing the time while you are invisible. So you also have the discrepancy, but you have an overall higher amount of Dark Illusions that you can press in Siege, because this will make it more dynamic and have more interactions rather than delaying it. And it would still have the same effect with the 4 per second difference. Yeah, I will not go over the bug fixes right there, as they are not important. The only thing that I do want to mention is that is this right here, as this is something that many players, that I even suggested in the guide, only upgrade a collector to +4, because they do not have a speed upgrade once you make him +5. And now all the people that followed the guide and made a +4 collector, now is your time to upgrade it to +5. Yeah. That's it for today. I hope you liked it. If there are any more questions, feel free to ask. And if you like the content, only 27% of my viewers are currently subscribed to the channel. So please consider subscribing so I can make more content for you guys. Cheers.